Abraham earlier in Genesis, and was punished accordingly. He made very good for it. He gave Abraham many big gifts, and
Welcome
Sarah,
to the Parsha and
because
HafTorah class.
diseases,
My husband started already,
diseases
so
that
I'm going to
people were
pass the
suffering
camera
from,
quickly.
he
Bezrat
made good
Hashem.
for it. Made good
Husband,
for it.
here you go.
Yeah, I'm going to review what a second, just finish my sentence. Made good for it by giving Sarah the land
turn to
of
the side
Goshen,
and
a
look at
beautiful
the camera
neighborhood in Egypt. We just decided to, don't feel bad if you're just coming in, it's perfectly okay. We are doing the portion of the week, and this week we are beginning the second book of Moses, the book of Exodus, and the Jewish people, as of the end of Genesis, were doing actually very well there. They had settled there, they multiplied, they had many, many children at a time, and they were in a nice neighborhood. And I had mentioned just a moment ago that this is the pattern of. This was, of course, this was the first. This was the first exile, and it's not called number one because it sort of sets the pattern for the other exiles. When we had the Holy Temple, and the temple was destroyed, and the Babylonians exiled us, but we followed this pattern, and it's a mistake. As a matter of fact, it was a mistake here too, where we are now as well. The Jewish people came down to Egypt temporarily. It was only actually because there was food there, and in order to survive, Jacob came down with the whole family. Joseph was there before, had interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, and see to it that the land was cultivated and produced incredibly tremendous amounts of food to last for the years of the famine. What went wrong is this. Instead of treating this as a temporary residence, and this is a lesson we try to teach our people today too, our place, our home is the land of Israel. The Arabs and the terrorists tried to take it away from us, very resentful. They feel that it should belong to them, which absolutely it does not. It was promised to the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as it states clearly in the Bible, and they have our Bible too. They know it as well. What we did wrong was we got too comfortable there. And when we get comfortable in the land where we're exiled, we start to copy the ways of our neighbors, our non-Jewish neighbors, and this happened in Egypt as well. And that's why the slavery actually occurred as well, because we got ourselves comfortable there and started following their wrong ways, immoral ways, idolatrous ways. Boy, they're very, very creepy idolatry there in Egypt there. It's in the museums. A lot of this information can actually be viewed in museums and the immoral way in which they live. And unfortunately, many of our people went astray following their neighbors. That's what gets us into trouble. And then we have to cry out to the Almighty to be rescued from the mess. I want you to know it's a mess actually that we get ourselves into. So I can take some featured points from the portion. There's some very, very interesting commentaries to share with you as well. Our favorite, of course, is always Rashi, and we'll start with him too. Here's the first verse of the second book of the 5 books of Moses. The Elah, and these are Shmos B'nai Yisrael, the names of the children of Israel, Haboim Mitzrayma, that are coming to Egypt, Eis Yaakov, with Yaakov, Ish Uveso Bo'u, each man with his household, his family, Bo'u they came. So then the list of the tribes, the children of Jacob, who is real, his top name is Israel, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, Uven, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. The names of the tribes are being mentioned again. They were mentioned before at the end of Genesis. They were mentioned. Not only were the tribal fathers, the sons of Israel, mentioned, but even the grandchildren that came down to Egypt as well. The Torah goes to the trouble to mention the names of Israel again because the Almighty loves us so much, He reviews it again in the Torah. Vayikol nefesh Yosei Yerach Yaakov Shivim nefesh, and all the souls that came from Jacob were 70 souls. V'Yosef hoya b'Mitzrayim, and Joseph was already in Egypt. The family's coming down, and they are coming down because of the terrible famine in all the other countries, including Israel. He was supposed to just to come down, just to stick out the famine, and then basically not to make our home there, but basically to our real home is to go back to Eretz Yisrael. So this is a mistake that we made, and have made many times that we've been exiled. It's happened right here in the United States of America. People have gotten so comfortable that they're worried about the coming of the Messiah. What will happen to my house, my car, my business, all these things that I have acquired here, all these things I've accomplished here. Lubavitcher Rebbe assured everybody everything's going to go. Do not delay the coming of the Mashiach because you're afraid to go. On the contrary, everything will be transported. All of our accomplishments and even our everything's synagogues, our synagogues that we attended, everything's going to go back to Israel. So the Almighty loves us so dearly that even though our names were mentioned as we were coming down to Egypt in 2 portions ago in Vayigash, portion Vayigash, the names are mentioned again. And we are compared to the stars of the heavens. And why are we compared to them? It's a pretty idea, isn't it? It's a pretty idea. You and I don't have too much time to look up at the sky. I'm ashamed of the fact that I don't appreciate Hashem's wonders that one can see in the sky. When I see photographs of the planets and other heavenly bodies that are made with these fantastic telescopes, etc., I wonder of the Almighty's wonderful creation. That's what it takes for me to appreciate the Almighty's creation. Well, we see that every night, if the weather is clear at least, that the stars are out, and they are sparkling and very beautiful to us and enjoyable to us if we can take the time. Now we're in the freezing cold of winter, so we're not doing that too much. And sometimes we have to go out at night. We do appreciate them anyway. These stars coming out aren't by simply nature. The Almighty brings them out and takes them back in when the sky becomes light. Mentioned again as we come down to Egypt. And that's, of course, where the children of Jacob passed away, and we were left in the exile there. So this shows us this tremendous love of the Almighty. When someone loves you and they show you how much they love you, you look up at the sky, and I hope we will now and we'll have a chance. Look up at the sky. Hopefully you see the stars at night and say to yourself, they're not there by themselves. They don't just show themselves. The Almighty puts them out and calls them by name, and each one has a holy and special significance and purpose in creation. So that's just the way the portion begins, which is very, very beautiful, which I'd like to share with you. Okay, let's see what happens after that. All right, Yosef and his brothers pass away, and then the Torah tells us a new king rules over Egypt who did not know Yosef. Who could not know Yosef? You and I, did we ever hear of George Washington? It's a long time ago he passed away. You and I have all heard of George Washington. How about Abraham Lincoln? How about many of the famous statesmen and other great leaders of the United States, including presidents who lived before our time too, or when we were very young? We remember them. How could the king of Egypt forget Yosef? One explanation is that he wanted to forget Yosef. Yosef saved Egypt, made it a very wealthy and powerful country. You don't want to be in debt to a Jew. This is the same thing that happens to us wherever we are exiled. They take our money, they take our brains, they take our ability, they take whatever they can get out of us, and instead of appreciating it, something is done to persecute us instead. Very, very strange thing. Taking Germany just for example, great scientists, great poets, great musicians, great composers, all Jews. And what do? Turn around, call us a dirty people.
Right.
They have to clean, keep their horrible race clean, and do everything to destroy us.
Right.
All this contribution we made to them, and that's how they show things. Same thing in Egypt. It all goes down to Egypt.
Yeah.
And the only one we can depend upon to rescue us is the Almighty Himself.
Yeah.
So the king of Egypt, who pretended not to know Joseph, one explanation is it was a new king. He still, of course, even if it's a new president, of course you would have known Joseph. He didn't want to know Joseph. Didn't want to remember the contribution of Joseph to this country and his people, of course not. So Pharaoh makes up a lie. He says these Jewish people are having 6 babies at a time. Boy, that's a lot of us, right? It's not a dietitian. They have 6 babies at a time. They are outnumbering us, and they're going to outpower us. Let's see what we can do and outsmart them, and outsmart their creator. Be very, very conscious of the Almighty for giving us all this tremendous blessing, etc. So he comes up with a number of decrees. Have the terrible slavery, of course, as mentioned, which was not just building storage areas for his treasures, but all work in the field, all kinds of abuse, terrible abuse that we suffered in Egypt, backbreaking work. You know, I saw a video once in which they have unearthed, I hope it's not Jewish people, they have unearthed, I'm sorry, I hope I don't want to spoil your skeleton. I don't want to spoil your separate story.
Mm-hmm.
They have unearthed, I'm a little tired, they have unearthed skeletons from the slaves. I hope it's not, Egypt had slaves before us and after us too. But at any rate, one of the things that's notable, as we showed also, I know it's not appetizing, was how bent the bones of the skeletons are, because they overworked them and they caused them to carry burdens that were far beyond human endurance. Hashem saved us. He saved us that we survived it all. Okay, so they enslaved us with backbreaking work. They embittered our lives in every way imaginable. And the king of Egypt goes to the midwives, the head midwives. They had, of course, it's a big nation, so there were many midwives. He goes to the head midwives, which was, of course, Yocheved, who would be Moshe's mother, and Miriam, his sister, and tells them, when you see that the women are about to give birth, what you should do is see to it that the baby boys are killed, and the girls very, very severe decree. So the decree altogether is very strange. First of all, the midwives can't let on they're going to kill children. God forbid, if they would, God forbid, listen. So he gave them signs. He said it's a baby boy. The boy is usually facing down. Baby girl, she's usually facing up. And before anybody knows any different, if you see it's a boy, take away its life. And tell the mother it was born stillbirth, they call it. It was born not alive, etc. That's how horrible it was. And amongst the questions that we wonder about this is the fact that why is he saving the women? So listen to how sneaky he was. If all the babies were put together, then they would suspect the midwives. Something going wrong over here, something very strange over here. So some of the children, at least the little girls, they'll be left to live. Okay. That's not all what his plan was. And listen to this, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe has explained this to us too. So the Imbasi, if it's a girl, Wahoya, she should not only be left alive, but she should be kept alive and should be kept healthy. His idea was pretty horrible that the Egyptian men would marry the women and the Jewish people would be completely absorbed and assimilated, and it would be all one Egyptian people. That was his idea. So, pretty horrible as it was, this is not the first time that we have gone into such incredible persecution. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe explained to us the deeper meaning in Bas Hoya, which I have alluded to a little bit already. Their idea was not only to spare the girls, but see to it that they grow up as Egyptian women. They should be kept alive, but not as Jewish girls. As Jewish women, they should be kept alive and trained and cultured as Egyptian. So this is the severe test that we had in Egypt, and Yocheved and Miriam had enormous courage. Here, it's a king. Even the president today has power over life and death too, as we see in many cases. We just took over the country of Venezuela. They captured and they are imprisoning the president of Venezuela. Very wicked. He's a wicked power in his own way too. So a president really has enormous power. Doesn't have absolute power like a king. The king doesn't like the way you look. He doesn't like the way you talk. Whatever off with his head. That's not an exaggeration. That's what they would do. Anybody they didn't like, no court, no trial, no opportunity to save yourself. So this is something that we must understand. Well, in realizing how severely wicked Pharaoh was, there were a number of decrees. And one of these decrees, of course, was for Miriam and Yocheved to train. Yocheved and Miriam. I put the mother and the daughter. Yocheved and Miriam. They were supposed to teach this to the other midwives of the Jewish people. And they who so the little boy, very secretly and sneakily, see to it that the baby boy doesn't survive, but the little girl should. So they were very courageous and disobeyed. Now this Pharaoh does have absolute control of the government, life and death, no second chances or whatever. And he accuses them. Why didn't you do what I told you to do? So they put their faith in Hashem. You know what they did? Instead of putting to death the baby boys, they took care of them, made sure that they had food. This is really risky, really dangerous. The exact opposite of the decree. Made sure that the little boys survived along with the little girls as well. So they explained to Pharaoh, we have to explain and excuse ourselves why we didn't put to the opposite of life with the little baby boys. It's because
excuse me.
The Jewish women.
There's a screen over here.
The Jewish women are very, very brilliant, and they actually know how to have a baby on their own. But a midwife actually has to do quite a few things to help the mother give birth and show her the proper things to do and put pressure where it's supposed to go and to squeeze it, and the different things you're supposed to do. So they told him that the Jewish women, they are almost compared to animals of the field. Animals don't have a midwife. They have children on their own. That's where the baby just drops out. That's it. And it's fine. It's so amazing that even something like a horse, for instance, a little teeny tiny baby horse is on its feet within a very, very little while altogether. It's amazing what Hashem puts into nature so that little horse can run away if it has to right away to save its life. Very, very interesting. God does many, many amazing things for us. At any rate, the Jewish people multiplied and multiplied with all Pharaoh's citizens. This is actually been explained by the Lubavitcher Rebbe today. Throwing babies into the Nile River means to throw them into the culture of the non-Jewish countries that we live in, which now is so, as a matter of fact, so deplorable, so horrible. The countries have adopted such horrible practices, as we know, changing of gender and having no moral principles. Family has been destroyed as a basic unit, etc., as well as we know. So throwing babies into the Nile River is to not give a Jewish baby the proper Jewish education that baby needs as it grows up to be a Jewish child with love of Hashem, love of the Torah, love of people as well. Care about the country that you have been born into and to influence people the proper way. So the Jewish people increased very, very much. One of the beautiful commentaries explains this term. Vayakutzum b'pnei bnei Israel. The Egyptians saw how we are multiplying exponentially, I think it's the right word to use, exponentially, incredibly, that the Jewish people are enormously, they say having 6 babies at a time. How do we know they had 6 babies at a time? It says, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, the grew by Yisrael, they were multiplied and they broke through all borders. And they swarm. We have a whole number of terms that are used, 6 terms actually that are used. From the labor of the son, and then I was filled with him, etc., etc. So this they couldn't stand. This they couldn't stand. 1 second, I'm going to just like to read that verse to you. Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, Peru, were fruitful, they should surely swarm by your boo, and they multiplied, their wood became stronger, and old. So let's count up those terms. Peru is 1, Vayishutsu is 2, Vayirvu is 3, Vayatzmu is 4, Va'od is 5 and 6. We're having 6 babies at a time. And this is, of course, a blessing of the Almighty to counter what the Egyptians were doing to them, do everything that they could do in order to minimize this. So it says, "Vayakutsu b'nei Israel." The Egyptians were disgusted to see that the Jewish people were multiplying in such an enormous way. Question: were they hurting the Egyptians? No. Were they benefiting the Egyptians? Yes. Then any of the blessings that are needed for the Jewish people, wherever we are, that country is blessed with our presence. And unfortunately, they turn against us very stupidly. Pharaoh is saying, they're so numerous. What if our enemy approaches and they'll join our enemy and drive us out of the country, etc.? Was there any thought of that? Was there any sign of that? Absolutely not. Just as in all these countries we have been driven, they come up with lies, they come up with fake stories. You know, the old fake story of Jewish people taking a non-Jewish child's blood to make matzah. Can you imagine anything more stupid than that? We're not allowed to even we can't eat an egg that has an egg drop in it. We can't eat blood at all. Completely false, completely fake. But this is something that we're constantly facing. And when those are kind to us, I'm very against President Trump's, he sent us many wonderful things, which I appreciate, of course, and God is blessing him, that's for sure, and saved his life more than once, too. But he's selling these very, very high-tech airplanes and things like that to different Arab countries at the moment, just like Egypt. At the moment, they appear to be allies. In the past, they have been terrible enemies of Israel, tremendous enemies of Israel. You heard that Turkey wants to be helping to get rid of Hamas. You could laugh real good with that. Turkey has been one of our most terrible enemies altogether. And you can see once they're in a position in the land to be able to have arms and to be able to do any fighting in Israel, you know who they're going to take over. You know what they're going to do. So Israel says, absolutely not. I'm just trying to bring out that this is how we start. We always have to be very, very careful. So it uses this expression, Vayakutsu B'nai Israel. The Jewish people were increasing enormously, and they couldn't stand this. They're disgusted by this. So the word Vayakutsu, coats in Hebrew, the word coats also means a thorn. We were like thorns, painful thorns to them. So one of the wonderful commentaries gives a beautiful example to help us appreciate this. The bird goes into a thorn bush seeking food. Birds eat insects, they eat seeds, etc., etc. So the bird goes into the thorn bush hoping to get some good meals from it and some sustenance from it. Then when it tries to escape, it gets injured by the thorns. So this matches what happened in Egypt. We got a nice welcome at first, and they tricked us into the slavery. When here, one of the tricks was Pharaoh said he needed construction being done and help, and it's only right for the Jewish people who are citizens who are enjoying the benefits of Egypt to participate. So what does he do? He takes that tool that they use for cementing, that special metal tool that you use for patting down the cement and cementing bricks together. He made it appear like he was the leader in encouraging everybody to participate. So, of course, being very grateful people, as Jewish people certainly are, we participated very enthusiastically. They slapped us and clapped us. Okay, now do the same thing every day. Just as you produce today, you do the same thing every day. I want to share a couple of other things with us too. Um,
Rabbi,
yes.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Oh, sure.
Um,
I understand. Sure. Thank you
Yeah,
for staying as long as you could. That's very much appreciated by Representative and myself too. Thank you, and thank you. We hope if you were free on Thursday night, we try to do our local class then. If you're not free, getting ready for Shabbos, Sunday we'll talk to you again for the Chasidus class. God willing.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
more than
you.
welcome, and thank you so much for joining.
Well,
Be well.
thank you.
You too.
Welcome.
Bye-bye. Okay, we learn about, I just want to go a little bit further. Thank you, YouTube people, for joining us. We appreciate that. We learn about the birth of Moses in this portion as well. Very miraculous situation. Moses had an older sister and older brother. The older sister was the Osna family, was the famous Miriam, in whose merit the Jewish people had the well that followed them in the wilderness. And of course, Moses' older brother was Aaron. So Pharaoh's decrees involved killing the Jewish baby boys, as we have learned already, either when they're born or thrown into the Nile River. He had a whole series of decrees. And Moses' father, Amram, had separated from his wife, who was Yocheved, separated from his wife, saying that what's the point of having children anymore? They're just going to be taken out of this world. So they already had two kids. They had Miriam, who was the oldest, and then Aaron. And Miriam went to her father and said, "You're worse than Pharaoh. Pharaoh made a decree that the baby boys cannot survive. Your decree is that nobody can survive whatsoever. If we do not have children, we don't have Jewish children at all, there'll be no Jewish people." So she convinced her father to get together with her mother, and that's actually how Moses was born. And there also the Egyptians were watching. They saw she became pregnant. They were counting the months, planning to take the baby away too. This is Moses, our great Redeemer. So she took a box made out of reeds, sealed it, made it waterproof with clay and with pitch, and she put the little baby Moshe Rabbeinu after the Egyptians knew she must have had a baby by now. They counted the months. They counted the months. She gave birth after 6 months. She had a preemie, and Moses was fine. Moses survived. So she was able to hide him for another 3 months, and then the Egyptians were onto her. So she goes and hides the baby in this box and puts the box on the Nile River by the reeds. So I was thinking about this. How in any way is Moshe Rabbeinu going to be rescued in this way? First of all, he is in the water. I know he's in a waterproof box, but he's in the water. Who knows what's going to happen to him or who's going to find him? His mother had complete and total faith in the Almighty that this miraculous little boy is going to grow up and save the Jewish people. Moshe Rabbeinu, the great Moses that we admire and revere to this very day. So I was thinking about this. If she's going to hide him, maybe hide him in a forest or something where nobody could see him. Where did she put him? In the Nile River? That's the very, very river that was used to destroy the Jewish people. What is she putting the box there for? Why? So on my own, with God's help, and you can criticize or disagree with me, I thought of a very logical answer. Where's the last place on earth that Egyptians will look to find their baby? They saw the baby wasn't home. Government must have done something with it. The last place on earth they would look is the Nile River. That's where they were destroying the other baby boys. So why would he be? And it was near the Nile River. So that to me was logically putting logic on that. But I learned a much deeper and very fantastic answer, which requires a little background. You've heard of astrologers, and to you, astrologers, they call them stargazers. They're able to tell certain things by looking at the stars and by studying other things as well. It's not all baloney. I thought it was all baloney. There is some sense to it, and there is some truth in it as well. And these astrologers were very brilliant people, and they knew how to interpret things, and they were sensitive, very sensitive to spiritual things. What we'll not call holy spiritual, we're going to call it unholy, non-holy spiritual. So what Yocheved did was very, very brilliant, and that was to take Moshe and put him in the Nile. How would this work? The astrologers who were anxious that every baby boy should wind up in the Nile River, they didn't see it with their eyes, but they were able to sense it. As they say, it's not all baloney. Their powers and their abilities, they had some spiritual abilities, which is true. Some. It's explained in the Torah that they know and they don't know. They know a little, but they don't know. The astrologers sensed that Moses, the baby, was already in the Nile River. That means that the one who's going to save the Jewish people is already destroyed. He's already lost. And we can go tell Pharaoh, you can turn off the decree. So hateful and so worried were they that there would be a redeemer for the Jewish people that his astrologers themselves told Pharaoh, today the savior, not J.C. Penney, God forbid, Moshe, the true leader of the Jewish people, has been born. And therefore, Pharaoh said, all baby boys, even Egyptian baby boys, should be thrown in the Nile. We have to make sure the Jews don't have any redeemer. They don't have anyone who will save them. Everybody get to be dumped into the Nile. So that's why Yocheved put Moshe on the Nile River so that the astrologers would be fooled. And they were. They'll think he's already in the Nile. He's already gone. we in our crazy sense that he is the redeemer of the Jewish people will go tell Pharaoh, you can turn off the juice, turn off the electricity, turn off the killing of all babies, because Moses already has been put in her incredible spiritual brilliance. Put him not in a forest, not in a cave. There's so many places you can hide a baby, but put him exactly in the Nile River to fool Pharaoh and his astrologers into thinking that the one who will save the Jewish people is already done for. He's already gone. It's a really, really incredible lesson that I learned myself not that long ago from one of the wonderful commentaries. I want to share with you one last thought which you can take with you and put into practice as well. Rabbi Senyeska, I'm concluding fairly soon.
No rush.
Okay, yeah, I'm concluding with one or two items. Before I forget, Rebbe Sinisk always wants me to make the comment about the HafTorah, a passage from the prophets which matches the content of the Torah reading. And in this case as well, it does, that the HafTorah speaks about when the Jewish people came to Egypt, how well Hashem took care of them, and how many blessings that they enjoyed. Then they became very corrupted, practicing idolatry, unfortunately, and immoral behavior, etc., etc. So the prophet is reminding them of their beginnings, of how God took such good care of them in exile. Then they go and they have a wonderful land of Israel and the Holy Temple, and look what they do with it. Look how they abuse it. So this is a lesson to take with us. But there's one other point that I wanted to share with you before concluding, that Moses grew up in the palace. He was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, who converted to Judaism, converted from Egyptian idolatry to Judaism. And one explanation is that she herself stretched out her arm to capture the box, to see what the box is. And when we hear a baby crying, she said right away, this must be one of the Jewish little boys. Jewish babies have been thrown into the Nile. And she took the baby to herself for a child. She raised him. Don't forget, she converted to Judaism, and she was given a very beautiful name by the Torah, Basia, daughter of God. Daughter of God. Because in growing up in an idolatrous country, her father is the Pharaoh. Her father is the Pharaoh who's in charge of all the immoral behavior and horrible conduct, etc. in the country. And here she goes and rescues a Jewish baby boy. Incredible story. He grows up, and he's growing up in the palace. This is a beautiful thought. He grew up in an Egyptian palace, a non-Jewish environment, and the slaves on the outside. What do I have to be concerned with them? They're lowlife. They're just property, as slaves are looked upon. Abused property, terribly abused property. He knew he was a Jew, and he went out to see how they were managing. He cared about them. And while he goes out to see how they're managing, there's an Egyptian overseer who's beating up a Jew. Why is he beating up the Jew? Not to make him work. He's beating up the Jew because the night before he had fooled the man's wife, took her husband out in the middle of the night, and sinned with the man's wife, a Jewish woman. Moses saw the next day that the husband figured out what had really happened, and the Egyptian is beating him to make sure that he never tells and that he never does anything to see to it that this sinful Egyptian is punished. Moshe Rabbeinu knew how to pronounce God's real holy name. He pronounced it, and he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sea. And later on, he sees two troublemakers of the Jewish people. They're known throughout the Bible as troublemakers, Dosan and Aviram. They're fighting, and one is about to smash the other one. And Moses says, "Wicked person, why should you strike the other person who's as wicked as you are? What do you hit? Why should you hit him?" These are two Jews who are fighting this time. So they, with chutzpah, I think many people know the word chutzpah if they don't know Yiddish, with contempt and great disrespect. Don't forget, he's prince. He's the prince in Pharaoh's palace. They didn't care. "You're going to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" And Moshe Rabbeinu thought nobody knew about it and became very frightened. And sure enough, as a matter of fact, these two wicked Jewish people tattled on Moses, snitched on Moses. And Moshe Rabbeinu was very afraid that Pharaoh would now, since he killed an Egyptian, it's one thing to grow up in the palace, but to go and kill an Egyptian, one of his subjects, this you can't get away with. So it says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, surely now the matter's out. Now Pharaoh knows that I killed one of his subjects, and I'm in deep trouble, and I have to be afraid for my life. So I want to teach you something that's very difficult to understand. It's a lesson that we learn, another lesson from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake here. Yes, he was supposed to kill the Egyptian who was abusing the Jew and might have killed the Jew. He was defending his own people, of course. The mistake was to be afraid. Even though it was out, the information was out, Moshe should have kept complete faith in God. I did the right thing. I did what I had to do to save a fellow Jew. I didn't say I can just go home to the palace and forget about these people, etc., etc. I can just go back to the palace and forget the whole incident. That's what he could have done. But Pharaoh knew. When we put our full faith in God, there's nothing to be afraid of. Pharaoh was after him and had him, he made an attempt at executing Moshe. This is all because Moshe was afraid. You and I have to take this lesson. You don't have to be a saintly, holy person like Moses to put this lesson into practice. Don't let yourself be afraid. Every time some problem comes up, and we all have problems, myself and Reverend of course, included, many things that we have to face. Put our full faith in the Almighty. He'll rescue us again. He'll rescue us again. He'll rescue us again. And he does. When we feel that the forces of evil have real power, when they have real power and they're going to win, that's when they get extra energy to do their evil. It's an incredible lesson. It's very hard to have the self-control to tell yourself, oh, you're worried about the bill, or you're worried about something happening, or you're told that you have to leave the apartment, you have to go live somewhere else. All the different things we're afraid of, the things that happen. Put your full faith in the Almighty, whatever it is, He'll rescue me, He'll rescue my family, as He has in the past. And you can see the Almighty puts that faith in Hashem is powerful. It's even more powerful than powerful it is. Okay, thank you for joining us.
Don't close until I come back.
Okay, thank you for joining us, and I hope that you will participate again with us, God willing. We have Thursday night, we have Jewish law class, and I've been continuing in the Code of Jewish Law. Last Thursday night, we learned about the fact that the holiest prayer, if you have not been able to say it its proper time, you can make it up with the next prayer. If you needed something very, very bad, like you're praying for help from the Almighty, and oh, I missed this prayer, I missed the afternoon prayer, I lost track of time, I overslept, I didn't say the morning prayer, I fell asleep. I fell asleep when I got home from work. I didn't say the evening prayer. We had learned these things um, last week. So this is one of the things we learned, that you are able to make up one of these holy prayers, and we all need the Almighty's help. That is for sure. While we're waiting just for a moment for Rebbetzin Yiska, the portion continues with Moshe, who runs away. He runs away from Pharaoh. Again, he didn't have to. He put his full faith in God. He didn't have to run away at all. I know you're going to tell me who's not going to be afraid. Here, this very wicked king has been putting many Jewish children to their end. Now he has an excuse. He has an excuse to get at Moshe. Full faith gives us that protection. So Moshe Rabbeinu runs away, and he arrives in the country of Midian, which I think is Jordan now. I think it's Jordan now. Certainly not one of our great friends. Things are quieter now, but we've had plenty of trouble from Jordan. At any rate, and he comes across Jethro, who was originally a priest. And you'll find this interesting, how a person can change. This Jethro was called Kohen On, the nobleman of the place called On, and he used to be such an idolater. He tried every religion. Isn't that incredible? He tried every religion and rejected them all. He became a true convert to the Jewish people, a true convert to Judaism. And Moses ran away, and he sees Jethro's daughters. I don't know why nobody asked the question, why did Jethro have his daughters shepherding sheep? He was now, of course, he was evicted by the people there, but he must have been a person of wealth. He had been a nobleman there, must have been a person of great wealth. And goodness sake, what in the world made him have his daughters? The shepherds are men, and they're very often men of low stature, I'm sorry to say, low morals, low character, etc., etc. The reason he had his daughters as shepherds is because no one would work for him. You rejected all of our false gods. You tried every religion in the whole world. He was searching. Imagine such a thing. People bow down to the dust of the feet. People bow down to excrement. They bow down to idols. People bow down to the most stupid things. To a person which is just as stupid. And because they were getting back at him, when the daughters came, they're the shepherds, and they're trying to water their father's sheep. They come and try to attack him and chase him away. Moshe Rabbeinu, who's not Moshe Rabbeinu yet, Moses, a young man, he goes and saves them. And they go and tell either their grandfather or fathers different explanations of what happened, that they were saved from the horrible shepherds, wicked, evil shepherds. So he says, why did you leave him alone? Bring him home here. Maybe he'll marry one of you. And he did. He married Zipporah. Okay, with that, we're going to thank you again for joining us. And please continue your participation. We look forward to learning Torah together again and again. Have a good night. And be well. Join us Thursday night if you can. Praise God.
You never reached the Rebbetzin?
No, she always knows that. She's not available. She's not available.
We
Thank
gotta
you
call
again.
her
Have a
cell
very
phone
good night.
sometime. Because if she's not home. Okay. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the class today. I'm sorry I couldn't do teaching, but I need to have my husband's dinner ready now. And hopefully we're going to have a divine order out of everything once again. Once we have the movers that we know are going to move us, and We're in the middle of the whole challenge right there. Trying to find who, what, and where. Hold on. Ben Sion, welcome. I'm trying to see who that is. Okay, looks like Ben Sion's on all of them. Okay. Anyway, welcome. Whoever came into the class, may you be royally blessed. And we'll be back again on Thursday night for biblical laws. Hope you can make it. Sei gesund, be gesund, sei gebencht. God bless you all. Shalom, shalom.